Marcus Mosiah Garvey, Mosiah Garvey, the great one. Marcus Mosiah Garvey, the lover. Marcus Mosiah Garvey, Marcus Mosiah Garvey.
This black people, our people, and Rasta people, these are people, you know, and we have something. If we gonna fight, we must fight for Marcus Garvey revolution, Haile Selassie revolution. You know what I mean? We can't just waste my life, really, through a kind of survival in a different sense, that is not a real survival. Because survival is not a self-survival. Survival is a people survival, like Marcus Garvey wanting people to survive.
Marcus Garvey family, ancestors no leave me. Now you bingy, Bobo Shanti. The blood of African kings run in my vein. Here in Jamaica, rebellious offspring. We've got a warrior spirit inside. From that time we can't change. And this a warrior spirit inside. It come for break every shackle and chain. Man a Shaka Zulu.
Welcome to Black History Month. For the first time ever, you are going to gain a special insight into the philosophy and opinions of one of the greatest men to have ever walked this earth. We are going to be celebrating a remarkable life and legacy over the next 31 days as I bring you the resurrection of Marcus Mosiah Garvey, a series which will be presented by me, Jermaine Brown, featuring 31 brothers from the community, all chosen to resurrect different speeches from Marcus daily. Now, before we get into the speeches, here's what you need to know. Marcus Mosiah Garvey was the founder and organizer of the largest independent black movement in the world, the Universal Negro Improvement Association and the African Communities League. At the heights of success, the organization had a worldwide membership of over 11 million subscribed members. Now, this was an excellent feat, especially when we consider that this happened during a time of no internet, no smartphones, no social media, and in the midst of 2 world wars. Yet he dared to travel the world, even to non-English speaking regions, spreading his message of self-love and empowerment. This was during a time when it was particularly dangerous for black men and women to even wander outside of their own homes. But these factors did not stop the man in the movement, for he had at his disposal an unmatched confidence. He did not fear failure. He did not care about the laughter and ridicule thrown his way. For he had a fearless passion for the advancement of black people worldwide that fueled his mission. Now, I'm intrigued to know more about the mind of this man and how he accomplished so much and what I can take from him that I can apply to my life today. We've now reached program 5 of our series, and today's talk is all about unemployment. Now, this speech was originally delivered at Liberty Hall in New York City on the 11th of February 1921, titled Unemployment. Today's resurrection is by Mandingo from London, UK.
You are listening to an Honor Level production featuring the resurrection of Marcus Mosiah Garvey.
More than half of young black men available for work in Britain are now unemployed, according to The Guardian newspaper. The paper says numbers from the Office for National Statistics show that since 2008, youth unemployment levels for black men have almost doubled from 28.8% to 55.9%. And 39.1% of young black women are out of work, the highest rate of any ethnic group. Nathan John, Chief Executive of the Youth Enlightenment Charity, joins us now from Lewisham in South London. Do you think that black unemployed people, men and women, should be given special treatment?
I don't think anyone should be given special treatment just merely by the colour of their skin. But when statistics are telling you that over 50% are unemployed, something has to happen, because, if we don't address this, potentially are we going to see more riots? Are we going to see more gangs, more knife crime, more single parents, a range of different things going on? So it has to be addressed. And one of the ways I think we need to address this is, promoting alternatives to employment, such as enterprise. There's a lot of them that are entrepreneurial. Some of them are doing illegal things with that gift. We need to get them to channel it and to set up, legitimate businesses where they're channeling that energy and that skill set that they do have, and being entrepreneurs, creating jobs, not just taking jobs.
I desire to speak to you today in a heart-to-heart manner, because just at the time we are facing critical conditions, and it is but right that we should talk to each other, counsel each other, and get to understand each other, so that all of us may be able to work from one common understanding for the good of all. I desire to appeal to the memory of the members of this association. You will remember that in the years immediately preceding the Great War in Europe, there was a great industrial stagnation among Negroes in the United States of America, and that we then faced a hard and difficult task industrially, economically, and we saw no hope, and we had none. Then immediately, whilst undergoing our hard and difficult experience, the war broke out in Europe. Germany declared war, and nearly all the European powers were dragged into the bloody conflict. Immediately the war started in Europe, the participants rushed a large number of orders for war supplies and munitions to the United States of America, that was then neutral in the war. By the abnormal demands for the industrials of these United States of America, a great industrial wave swept the country, and untold opportunities were opened up to Negroes everywhere in these United States of America. Not only to Negroes, but those untold opportunities were opened up to all races, to peoples within the confines of this country. Factories and mills and industrial plants sprung up everywhere in the great industrial centers, and men who never had employment, men who never had any occupations prior to that time, found opportunities then. Men for years who never had the chance of earning a decent wage found jobs ranging in weekly salaries or wages from $25 to $100, and some $200 a week. Men everywhere were employed, and even the peons and the serfs of the South broke loose from the South and ran north, where these great industrial opportunities had opened up themselves for each and every one. Men came from the West Indies. Men came from all parts of the world to America to enjoy the benefits of the new industrial opportunities offered in America. These opportunities opened up larger and larger, and out of the wealth that was poured out of the Great War, some of the people who enjoyed the distribution of that wealth conserved the portion they got or received, such as the Jews, the Italians, the Irish, and the Poles. Their leaders in the pulpits, through periodicals, through magazines, and from platforms and classrooms, taught their respective groups the value of conserving the wealth that was then poured out into their pockets in the form of salaries and wages to prepare for the rainy day that would come. Negroes, however, in the most loose, the most slack, the most indifferent manner, received their portion of the wealth that was poured out, and they made absolutely no effort to conserve it. They distributed it as quickly as they received it. They paid it out back to the employer or to his friend or to his brother or some of his relatives as quickly as they received it from him. And just at the time, a large number of the leaders of the country said nothing. They had no advice to give. The preachers said nothing, and they gave no advice to the people. Just about that time, the Universal Negro Improvement Association came upon the scene with an active propaganda. It taught preparedness, industrial preparedness among the Negroes then. It warned them and told them that they should prepare to start industries of their own, to save their money, and to make every effort to protect themselves, because after the war, there would be a great industrial dearth. There would be a great industrial stagnation. We taught that doctrine. We preached it. We wrote it in the newspapers. We scattered it near and far. We sent the doctrine everywhere. And everywhere we got the retort that we were crazy, that we were a bunch of lunatics. The man who inspired the movement was a crazy man and a fit subject for the lunatic asylum. They said all manner of things against him because we dared then, when no others would do so, to teach the doctrine of industrial, economic preparedness. The people, however, could not see, and they believed we were crazy. But we stuck to our doctrine. We adhered to our belief, and we were able to convert 4 million people scattered all over the world to our doctrine and to our belief. But we did not convert the 4 million people at one time. It took us 4 years to convert them. Some became converted immediately and assumed the burden and responsibility of carrying and conveying the doctrine to others. Hence today, I am able to look into the faces of some of the people who started with me when we organized the Universal Negro Improvement Association. People who have made the sacrifices I made in money and in time. They bore the brunt of the situation because on them lay the responsibility to finance and support the propaganda so as to carry the propaganda to others. And they have borne the price of the propaganda for 4 years, reaching the 4 millions. But it reached the 4 millions only too late because the war and the opportunities were over. And when it reached them, they could ill afford to support the doctrine to convey it on to others. Hence, the present situation that confronts us now. There are hundreds and thousands, and later on millions of men in this country of Negro blood who will be thrown out into the cold. We anticipated it. We saw it, and we warned the people against it. We did it with the feeling of our sympathies for our own. We did it with the feelings of conviction that the men with whom we mingled during the war paid us large wages, paid us large salaries with a vengeance. But they were forced. They were compelled to do so. And they did it with a spite and with a vengeance. Some did not see it and did not appreciate the fact of those who saw it and warned the people against it. The attitude of the employers in this country was to pay the Negro as small a wage as possible on which he could hardly subsist or hardly live, because he desired to keep the Negro as an industrial peon, as an industrial serf, and make it impossible for him to rise in the great industrial economic ladder of life. He kept him down, not because the Negro before the war was not worth more than he was paid for his labor, for at all times the Negro is worth more than $20, $30, or $40 a month. Yet that was all that was paid to us prior to the war. And all of you know it. It was paid to the elevator men, to the porter men, and everybody nearly got the maximum of $40 or $50 or $60 a month from his employer prior to the war. Not because we were not worth more than that for our labor, but because the other man was prejudiced against paying us more than that. He desired not to give us a chance to rise in the industrial and economic world. But the war came, and we compelled him by conditions. We forced him by conditions to pay us $100 a week, to pay us $50 a week, to pay us $60 a week. And some of us mechanics forced him to pay us $200 a week. And he paid it, but with a bitter anguish. He paid it with great reluctance. He paid it with a vengeance. And he said, I am going to get even with the Negro. He knew the Negro better than the Negro knew himself. He knew the Negro would spend every dollar, every nickel, every penny he earned, which he was compelled to pay. He laid the plan by which the Negro would spend every nickel, but the Negro hadn't sense sufficient to see it and know it. Now, what was the object and purpose of it? To take back every nickel that he paid him. When he raised the cost of living, when he raised the cost of bread, when he raised the cost of butter and of eggs and of meat and of other necessities of life, what did he mean? He meant that we should return to him every penny of that which we got from him, and that the Negro had not sense enough to see it. He raised the price of everything. He raised the price of luxuries, for he knew well that above all other peoples, Negroes love luxuries, and he taxed us in the districts where Negroes live. For you paid more for the luxuries you received in your district than the white folks paid for the same luxuries in their district. The white people planned to get every nickel that they paid to you, and we fell for it. We bought silk shirts at $10 a piece and $15 a piece. We bought shoes at $30 and $25 a pair. We bought ladies' dresses at $100 a suit. We bought the most expensive hats, silk socks at $3 a pair, at $2 a pair, and $1.50 a pair. And we took automobile rides and paid $24 for a Sunday afternoon ride. And we did all kinds of things of that sort. Some of us had 6 girls and gave presents to each of them. Thus, we spent every nickel of what we received. Did anyone else live at the same rate at which a Negro then lived? Did the Italian live at that rate? Did the Jew live at that rate? They did not. The Jews saved at least 50% of what they earned. The Italians saved at least 60% of what he earned. The Irish saved at least 50% of what he earned. And at the end of the war, every one of them had a bank account to show. Every one of them had some investment in Irish interest to show. How much did we save? What interest have we to show? Absolutely none. Whose fault is it? It is the fault of the people. It is the fault more of the leaders. You cannot so much blame the people because the bulk of the people do not think. The bulk of the people follow the advice of their leaders. And the people of that race that has no leaders is a race that is doomed. Negroes never had any leaders at any time. That is why we have always been doomed. When we preach the doctrine of preparedness, men like your boy criticize the UNIA and its leader. All of you can remember that when we started the propaganda of the UNIA and the Black Star, every newspaper and magazine in New York tried to disown us. The Amsterdam News wrote against us. The New York News wrote against us. The Crusade wrote against us. The Challenger wrote against us. The Emancipator wrote against us. Every one of them wrote against us and discouraged the people. Whose fault is it now? That is the question. And you yourselves must give the answer. They all said and pointed to us, saying that we were a crazy bunch of people. What did we tell you during the war period? And immediately following the war, when you were still employed, didn't we tell you that there was a Black Star Line? Did we not tell you that its capital was $10 million? Did we not throw away during the war $50 and $100 and more at different times for mere pleasure and expensive fashionable clothing? And had we invested that money, which we then spent so lavishly and foolishly to subscribing to the capital stock of the Black Star Line, what would have happened with $10 million of its stock subscribed and paid for? We would today have 20 ships that would belong to us as ours, each worth $500,000. And what kind of ships would they be? They would be ships of a tonnage of 5,000 to 8 or 10,000 tons. They would be ships each able to accommodate at least 500 to 1,000 passengers. If we had 20 ships, each able to accommodate 1,000 passengers across the Atlantic Ocean, what would happen today? Every day in the week or every other day of the week, a ship of the Black Star Line would sail out of New York port with at least 1,000 unemployed men from New York to Liberia, West Africa. That is what we saw. That is what we tried to tell the people and teach the people. How many of us would be unemployed today if the capital stock of the Black Star Line had been subscribed for 2 years ago? I hardly believe that there would be an unemployed Negro here. Because if we have 10,000 unemployed Negroes in Harlem today, we could call up 10 ships of the Black Star Line and say to the captain of those ships that we have 10,000 Negro men unemployed to send to Liberia. Take them. But you did not subscribe the capital. You paid it out in silk shirts. You paid it out in expensive socks. And who made those factory silk shirts and those fancy silk socks that you purchased and paid for? White men. Who sold them to you? White men. Where is the money you paid for them? Gone back to white men, and you are still the paupers that you were prior to the war in 1914. Whose fault is it? That is the answer you must give yourselves. It pains me. It grieves me. It brings tears to my eyes when I see a race, not of children, but of matured minds, of full-grown men and women playing with and threatening their lives and the destiny of themselves and of posterity. What more can we do as leaders of the Universal Negro Improvement Association than to open the eyes of the people by talking to them, preaching to them, pleading with them, and writing to them concerning that which we know, that which we see. That is all we can do. Some of you are crazy now, as crazy as you were, some of you 4 years ago. And those of you who are old members of the UNIA can remember Marcus Garvey in the streets of Harlem, when you had your fat jobs downtown, earning $100 a week, and in other parts of the country, I could have done the same, but I saw the threatening disaster. And what did I do? I had as much ability as the average man. I had as much skill as the average man. The average man was going his way, making his pile, and enjoyed himself when he was at leisure. People would walk up and down Lenox Avenue and see Marcus Garvey on a stepladder and would say, "Look at that crazy black fool." They called me all kinds and all manner of names, standing up there talking about Africa. Look at his coat, look at his shoes and everything he has on. They said all those things about me. But I saw the future collapse. I saw the results that would follow the then period of prosperity that was only transitory. I saw the day when the very big Negro, who then got his pay envelope on a Saturday night of $100 and believed he was the biggest thing in Harlem. I foresaw when he would be the smallest thing in Harlem, that he would be the man without a nickel, because I knew the war would soon be over, and I knew the white man would then throw him aside as soon as hostilities were over. And there was a slackening in the demand for the commodities or munitions he was then making, and give the preference to white men. And that has been the white man's policy ever since his contact with the Negro. That has been his program, and that will be his program always, so long as Negroes are foolish enough to allow him to use them for what he wants. I am sounding the second warning, and I want you to take it from a man who feels the consciousness of what he says. I am not pretending to be a prophet. I am not pretending to be a sage or a philosopher. I am but an ordinary man with ordinary common sense who can see where the wind blows. And the man who is so foolish as not to be able to see and understand where the wind blows, I am sorry for him. His senses are gone. I can feel, and the man who cannot feel, no, I am sorry for his dead sense. I can see where the wind is blowing, and it is because of what I see that I am talking to you like this. There are some Negroes in Harlem who are working, and some who save money. They believe they are always going to have jobs. They believe they are always going to have money. You will always have money if you know how to use it. There are some men who have money and then lose all they have because they never know how to use it. There are some men who never had and they get and always have it. Now, I want you to realize this one truth that I am endeavoring to point out to you. There are a large number of unemployed Negroes in New York, and there are hundreds of thousands of unemployed Negroes in different parts of the country. I have been traveling for the last couple of months, and in all of the western states I have seen Negroes out of work by the hundreds in centers like around the western and midwestern states. So that whether we live in New York or somewhere else, conditions are just as bad. So you might as well stay where you are and face the situation. What we Negroes who are still working and who have money to do is to decide upon some wise plan to save the situation. Negroes do not like to help Negroes anyhow. But perforce, we will have to help each other, or otherwise something will happen to surprise us. I told you but recently that when a man is hungry, he is the respecter of no person. A hungry man forgets the look of his father. Understand that. There are some Negroes who believe they should not take interest in other Negroes. Now let me tell you that we are going to face a situation, the most critical ever experienced by this race of ours in these United States of America. I told you some time ago that it is a question of dog eating dog. You know how bad a situation that must be. What I mean by it is just that there are some Negroes who are too big, who are too aristocratic and too dicty to take interest in other Negroes. I'm going to tell you what I believe will happen to such Negroes later on if they do not get busy now and do something for all Negroes, irrespective of what class these Negroes belong to. No community is safe if in its midst there are thousands of hungry men. I do not care where that community is. It is an unsafe community, and especially at midnight. Let the big, dicty Negro say, what do I care? For that good-for-nothing Negro is nothing. That poor Negro who has never had a square meal for 4 days goes to that big, dicty Negro. I'm trying to picture the conditions later on. He goes to that big, dicty Negro and asks for a quarter or 50 cents, and he drives him away. That Negro, after not having a square meal for 2, 3, or 4 days, turns away and loses heart. And nothing in the world is too desperate for him not to do. To find bread, a man is driven to the farthest extreme. And at midnight, or even in the daylight, he resorts to violence and cares not what the result be, so long as he finds bread to satisfy his hungry heart and soul. I have just come from Chicago, and there I heard of a hungry Negro who never had a square meal for 2 or 3 days. He had begged everybody around town, and everybody drove him away. He said, "Why should I die for hunger when somebody can give me bread? Since they have refused me, I will take it." And he goes to the house of a preacher somewhere in the outskirts of Chicago. And he gets into the house where sleeps the lonely preacher. And at midnight, what did that hungry Negro do? He took a razor or some sharp instrument and severed the head of that sleeping preacher from the body to get $2. He got $2 and killed a man for $2 as to find bread. When he had spent that $2 and could not get any more bread, he called the police and said, "I will confess to you what I did if you give me a square meal." He was given a meal of chicken and something else and confessed that he killed the man. Those are the conditions that hungry men are not responsible for. I do not care how religious a man is or how many Sunday schools he goes to. I do not care how long he can pray. When that man is hungry, he's a dangerous character. And that is a practical common sense issue that you have to face in a practical common sense way. White folks have stopped looking out for Negroes. They stopped before there was a war. The war robbed them of all that there was in the world. Now they have nothing because they have used up all that is in the world. It is a question now of every man looking out for himself. That is all. The white man is deaf to your sympathy and to your cries. You may cry and beg for jobs. He will not give you except you are the only fellow who can fill that job that he wants done. But the first man of his own race he finds able to fill that same job with the same ability as you have, you are gone. And he does not wait to ask where the white man comes from. He only wants to know he's a white man. And out you go. He does not wait to know where you are from. He says you are a Negro, and out you go.
You are listening to an Honor Level production featuring the Resurrection of Marcus Mosiah Garvey series.
Now, what do? We are saying to the men of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and to the Negro race, I am speaking only to those who have confidence. If you do not have any confidence in yourselves, if you do not have any confidence in your own race movements, I am sorry for you, and I would ask you to go your way. Men must have confidence in something and in someone. Without confidence, the world is lost. Mankind has retrograded and the world has gone back. The world is built upon confidence. Confidence in someone. Confidence in some institution. Confidence in something. We live as rational human beings, social human beings, because we have confidence in people and in God, the Creator. Let a man lose his confidence in his people and in a God, and chaos is ushered in, and anarchy sweeps the world, and human society is destroyed. It is only the belief and the confidence that we have in a God why man is able to understand his own social institutions and move and live like rational human beings. Take away the highest ideal, the highest faith and confidence in God, and mankind at large is destroyed. As with your confidence in God, as with your confidence in religion, whether it be Christianity or any other religion, so must you have confidence in your institutions that mean anything to you as individuals and as a community. Now I am saying to you who have confidence in the Universal Negro Improvement Association, and if you have no confidence, you should not be here. I am here because I have confidence that the men and the women who make up the movement will continue and continue until victory be written on the banner of the red, the black, and the green. I am here because I have confidence in humanity. I am here because I have confidence in God. And I expect that all those who wear the red, the black, and the green are here because they have confidence in the ultimate triumph of this great cause of ours. If you have confidence, if you have faith in it, as you have confidence and faith in your religion, therefore, it is time for you to support the movement and make it the success that you want it to be. Make your support not a half-hearted one, but make it a wholehearted one. You have seen the first practical demonstration of the utility of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. You have seen the first mistake made by this race of ours, as I have tried to preach to you in these few years. The mistake during the war period. I am asking you now not to repeat or not to make the same mistake. I know as I look into the face of many of you that there are hundreds of you, members of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, who have not done anything yet for the practical carrying out of the program of this organization. I've asked many of you if you have your liberty bonds, and you say no. I ask why. You say, well, because you are not able just now to buy. You rate your ability to buy on the surplus money you have. When you bought a share or two in the Black Star Line for $5 or $10 2 years ago, you did it when you were getting a salary of probably $100 or $50 a week. And you said, I will invest $10 in the Black Star Line because you had your work and so much surplus cash. No, it is not a question of surplus cash. It is a question of duty. It is a question of your own interests. I am saying to the men and women of the Negro race, there is but one salvation for the Negro as I see it now, and that is the building of Liberia, West Africa. The only salvation for Negroes now is opening up industrial and economic opportunities somewhere, and I don't see it around here. You will have to create another war for it, or you will have to get another Kaiser before I will see it around here. I have no objection to seeing another Kaiser, and I feel sure you would have no objection either, whether he comes from Japan or anywhere. But on the second coming, I believe you will be better prepared than the first coming. Once bitten, twice shy. But you have to bite Negroes 100 times before they get shy. We have been bitten for 300 years, and up to now, we are not shy yet. What do I mean? I want you members to act as living missionaries to convince others. There are still Negroes here who can help and buy shares in the Black Star Line. Those of you who have done your duty, I am not speaking to you, but there are thousands who can subscribe to the Liberian construction loan. There is a hungry man. He has not a nickel in his pocket, and he's begging bread. There is another man with $1,000. The one man without money to buy bread can neither help himself nor his fellow men. The man with $1,000 cannot only help himself, but he can help dozens of others. But he's too selfish. He, like the other man, has no money, has no job, and he says, I have $1,000, but I have no job. I am just going to hold on to this $1,000. And every day, he spends $3, $4, $5 out of it, and still has no job. Every day, $5 has gone, and he's too selfish to think about the other man. He's too selfish to think about anybody else he meets. And every day, $5 goes out of his $1,000. And at the end of the year, he still has no job. His $1,000 is gone. And he's like the other fellow, without a nickel. Both of them face each other. Two hungry men. One cannot help the other. But that man who had the $1,000, if he were a wise man, a man of common ordinary sense, what would he have done when he finds himself without a job and with $1,000 only left out of his years of earnings? He would say, is there an organization around that is endeavoring to do some good? Are there any other men around who want to do some good? If so, I will go and link up with them and do some good. Yes, he would say, there is an organization over there. What are they trying to do? They are trying, among other things, to raise $2 million or $10 million to put a line of steamships on the ocean to carry hundreds of men from these ports of the world to Africa, where they are going to build factories, mills, railroads, etc., and find employment for hundreds of men. They are crying for money to put over the scheme. I will find out how far they have gone. And if it is possible that they can carry it through, I will put in $500. And if the other fellow who has his 1,000 will also put in $500, and others will do likewise, $10 million will be subscribed to buy ships. And $2 million will be subscribed to buy railroad and building materials. And we will be ready to ship men to Africa to work from January to December and open up opportunities immediately. That is what I'm trying to get you to understand. $1,000 in your pocket without a job may find you worse off at the end of 6 months. $1,000 or $200 or $100 invested in an organization in which you have confidence may save yourself, your children, and posterity. If you have no confidence, I cannot advise you, because I will do nothing myself except I have confidence in it. A man's confidence is his guide. A man's faith is his guide. I am only speaking to those who have faith in the Universal Negro Improvement Association. If you have faith, if you respect the success that we have made in 3 years when we started without anything and have reached where we are now, if you have faith that we can continue where we are to the greater success to be, I'm asking you to support the program of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. I want to find out how many of you have confidence and faith in the Universal Negro Improvement Association. Hold your hands up. I thank you for your faith. I thank you for your confidence. But men and women, remember, it is not a question of Marcus Garvey or any other man. It is a question of yourselves. What will you do to save yourselves? Marcus Garvey cannot save anybody, because Marcus Garvey is but human, like every other man. Jesus Christ is the only man who has the power to save. I am but a man. I cannot save you. You must save yourselves. I am only trying to advise you the way how all of us can save ourselves. If you do not heed it, it will not be my fault. I have stood by, I have listened, and I have heard all kinds of people blaming me. What can I do? I have advised you all the time how to get jobs. That is all I did. If you do not have jobs now, it is not my fault. I advise you to put the money you saved into a great corporation, of which you are members, not in some strange thing that you did not know anything about, but in your own organization. Every member of the organization has a right to know everything about the organization, so that when you put your money into it, you are getting your money in your own hands. I am but one individual who helped to carry on the work of the organization. And if you do not trust yourselves, who is to blame? You did not have confidence in yourselves. I am giving you a message that you may impart it to others and tell them there's still a chance, because we have not reached the worst yet. But that chance you must grasp in the next 60 days. I have met men coming to the office who have been out of work for 3 months and 2 months and 1 month. It brings tears to my eyes to see them. I saw a fellow whom I believe 4 years ago was raising Cain up in Harlem. He used to look at me on the street and laugh and walk on. But now he has been reduced to dire straits, and he came to the office and would not leave until I gave him 50 cents. That is the way with the majority of Negroes. That fellow earned as much money as any other man around here, and every evening you saw him on the avenue with a new girl. The girls are belonging to someone else, and he's down and out. And that is the situation. Not with one man, but with hundreds of our men. I'm going to give this one advice. I've been waiting for the last 60 days to see what the politicians would do in making an effort to present the case of the Negro to the proper authorities. I have searched all the papers and I have not seen anything done. No attempt made. And because they have done nothing, I have to start to do something. You will all understand that I am an African citizen and I am not supposed to interfere in domestic politics. But if the other fellow will not start out before I see the people perish, I will take my chance. I know that this nation owes a solemn obligation to the Negro, and I could not stand and see the Negro perish without a hearing. And since the politicians have not spoken, we shall send a delegation of the Universal Negro Improvement Association to the governor of New York to find out what he means by allowing Negroes to be closed out of jobs when Negroes, and especially the boys of the New York 15, fought so nobly in France and Flanders for the preservation of American freedom. What does the state mean by allowing the politicians and citizens of the state to close out Negroes and give alien enemies jobs now? We will send a deputation to Albany to ask Albany, will you want us again? And we will expect a direct answer from Albany. We will ask Albany, will you want us in the American-Japanese War? Will you want us in the Anglo-American War? Because David Lloyd George is scheming now to write off the war debt, and no American citizen is going to stand for it. Therefore, it may end somewhere else. Will you want us then? And we will listen for the answer from Albany. And from Albany, we will send the same deputation to Washington a couple of days after to ask the same question. This is no time for bowing and scraping and pussyfooting. It is time to let the other fellow know that you are alive. Negroes do not want to beg jobs. Negroes must demand jobs. That is all there is about it. But you must demand jobs in the proper way. Let the leaders of the race, if they are leaders, as Du Bois and men like Moulton, go out and let President Harding know that 10 or 15 million Negroes stood behind the country in time of war, and they must now stand behind those 10 or 15 million Negroes. If you have any men posing as leaders who are going about among white people, bowing and scraping, they will brush you aside. You must have as your leaders and representatives men who will let our high officials and other influential white people know that you are alive and that you are going to stay alive. I cannot see the philosophy of taking any other stand but this. I cannot see the reason for it, that Negroes should be drafted and sent 3,000 miles away to fight and die at the command of their country, to help make conditions and life safe for other people, that Negroes, those whom their government did not send to war, remained at home and engaged in making munitions and other necessities for carrying on the war, so as to win the victory. I repeat, I cannot see wherein Negroes who have made sacrifices such as these for their country, now that the war is over and the condition of business depression exists through the country, should be discriminated against and in favor of other men who were their country's foes and who have no other claim to preferential consideration than the color of their skin happens to be white. I cannot see the consistency, the right of it. Your men must not yield up your jobs so easily. You have a right to them, and it is a question what you must make up your minds to do. And that is to demand what is yours. That is all. If you are too cowardly, you will never get anything. It is better to die demanding what is yours than starve getting nothing. That's how I feel. And since they have done nothing, in another 10 or 15 days, we will have a delegation up in Albany. And from Albany, the delegation will go to Washington and ask, what do they mean? We preserve the nation, and the nation must preserve us. Men, you have the balance of power in America, and we are the balance of power over the world. Do not let the world bluff you. The American writers themselves acknowledge that the only people they could depend on in America for loyalty to the flag are the 15 million Negroes in America, because they cannot tell the enemy in that he is white. The German is white, and they have had a hard time finding Germans. But they could tell who were Negroes, and the Kaiser was not from the Negro either. So they knew the Negro was their friend. When the white man came, they had to ask, who comes there? And he had to answer, friend. But they did not have to ask that when they saw the black man coming. They knew before he came that he was a friend. However, we are going to ask them a question, as I told you a while ago. For since the politicians have not done anything, we have got to play a little politics now. But above all, men, I want you to remember that now is the time for you to support the Universal Liberian Construction Loan. You men who have $50, you men who have $100, you men who have $300 or $200, now is the time for you to invest part of your money so as to enable us in another couple of weeks to secure the ship which we want to go to Africa. The ship is right down at the foot of 82nd Street now. We can have it under contract this very hour, but the ship has to go for another 26 days because we have the money to sign up the contract. The ship costs $500,000. Oh, some of you think a ship can be bought for $500. Ships in these days cost $1 million, $2 million, $500,000. $250,000 and so on. And when you get a ship for $250,000, you have got a cheap ship. We have been negotiating for the ship, the kind of beautiful ship that we want. A ship with everything on it that we want. But we just had to look and wait a while because Negroes wouldn't subscribe enough to buy it. If we had the money with which to buy the ship, we could send 300 men tomorrow morning to Africa. The ship can carry 300 passengers at one time. And the money for it is right here in Harlem. Some of you say we are crazy. I cannot do better than tell you what we are planning, what we are hoping, what we are doing, what lies before us all in the future, and what we should do to attain the destiny that God has mapped out for us. We are hoping that we will realize the money between now and the 19th of March to complete the contract. But God Almighty knows it depends upon the people. If they will not support the Universal Liberian Construction Loan, I cannot work miracles. I cannot take blood out of a stone. Therefore, for this reason, I have spoken to you today. And I'm asking you to advise your friends, those of you who have already subscribed or who have already invested in the Universal Liberian Construction Loan, to appeal to them and urge them to join in the support of this very necessary and much needed and most worthy object by subscribing to the loan and investing whatever money they can at this time in the enterprise so that we can put this great program over. I thank you very much for your attention.
You have just listened to an On a Level production. On a Level.
Shabba ranks.
Even the everything harder than it outer order.
Yeah.
And all of the great man and all of the great people have to hurt them set harder.
Yeah.
Majesty are harder, Marcus Garvey are harder.
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
So
yes,
now deal with if you don't follow the harder, then you outer harder. Tell it to them as them come up, say, listen to me. You don't have to show respect to the man them who really do the work. If you don't show the respect, you can't go like you want to circle the man them who do the work, you know. You want to honor people, you want to see people, blessing. Bless!
This generation believe in drama, we believe everything but what's ours. Black power, black power. All these riots, black power. Don't stay quiet for the black power. Trayvon Martin, that's black power. Mike Brown, black power. Eric Gardner, black power. Sean Bell, black power. Malcolm X, black power. Dr. King, black power. Sojourner Truth, black power. Harriet Tubman, black power. Jordan Davis, that's black power. All my life never felt sour, cause a lot of things invented, that's ours. So they made us work for that black power. Now you make them work for this black power. Potato chips from a black man. Your light bulb work cause a black man. No traffic lights from a black man. Even the ice cream scooper from a black man. Black power, black power. Your cell phone from a black man. A doorknob from a black man. A dustpan from a black man. Your elevator from a black man. Your refrigerator from a black man. You see that stove? A black man. Even the mailbox came from a black man. Black power, black power. All my women, black power. Unity from black power. Communities, where your black power. Black power, black power. You not black, black power. You think you not black, black power. State the facts, that's black power. That's black power, black power. All my life got black power. Whether dark or light, that's black power. See me in it there at night, still black power. Black power, black power. All my life got black power. Whether dark or light, that's black power. See me in it there at night, still black power.
We've just been listening to unemployment, something that still ridicules us 98 years later. Now this concludes the 5th part of our series for day 5. So we'd like to thank Mandingo for today's resurrection. Mandingo is a civil engineer, journalist, record producer, public speaker, and publisher. As a student at Kingston Technical High School, he became politicized through the 1960s by the Black Power movement and by Marcus Garvey Jr. He often visited the home of the Garveys for long reasoning and debate sessions with the sons of Mr. and Mrs. Garvey. He chose to take part in the resurrection of Marcus Garvey because he's a Garveyite, aka Pan-Africanist. Mandingo says Marcus Garvey gave us the blueprint solution to implement to ensure our protection and progress in all aspects of life.
I'm bridging my team, red, black, and green, queens and kings, salute, now scream, I should. I'm bridging my team, red, black, and green, queens and kings, salute, now scream, I should.
As you know, in this series, we are paying homage to Marcus Mosiah Garvey, as Black History Month is all about celebration. So join me to give a few shout-outs, starting with Garvey's parents, Mama Sarah Jane Richards and Pops Marcus Garvey Sr. We also want to pay homage to those esteemed ancestors who paved the way for Marcus to appear on the world stage. We also pay homage to the graduates of the School of African Philosophy and all of the founding members and supporters of the UNIA. Last but not least, we pay special homage and tribute to his esteemed wife, Amy Jakes Garvey, who was a formidable leader in her own right. Mrs. Garvey kept her husband's legacy alive, and it is partly because of her loving efforts that we can share this groundbreaking series with you today. Tune in tomorrow at the same time for the resurrection of Marcus Mosiah Garvey, with me, Jermaine Brown. I'm going to leave you with the famous anthem that Marcus Garvey and the UNIA members had wanted to be adopted as the universal anthem for Black people across the globe. Let's take a moment to listen and feel free to wave your red, black, and green flag should you have one.
Up your mighty race! You can accomplish what you will.
Yes, sir!
A storm cloud at night suddenly gathers, all armies come rushing to thee. We must in the fight be victorious, when swords are thrust outward to gleam. For us will the victory be glorious, when led by the red, black, and green. Advance, advance to victory, let Africa be free. Advance to meet the foe, advance to meet the foe, with the might of the red, the black, and the green, with the might of the red, the black, and the green. O Jehovah, thou God of the ages, grant unto our sons that need the wisdom thou gave to thy sages when Israel was sore in need. Thy voice to the dim past spoken, Ethiopia shall stretch forth her hand. By thee shall all fetters be broken, and heaven bless our dear motherland. Advance, advance to victory, let Africa be free. Advance to meet the foe, advance to meet the foe, with the might of the red, the black,
On a Level Productions, taking you to higher heights.